Thank you, Lori. It's beautiful. Reminder, some handouts in the back with some questions there or in the lobby. And we'll also post them on the video that's on Facebook. We'll stick this up there as well. So if you don't pick one up here, you can have one. Our Monday evening group and our Wednesday evening group are both going over the sermon. And so using these questions, but also encourage you, if you're not attending either of those, to pick them up and find someone else to go through it with. All right. Week 2, it's going to be fast, right? Only 6 weeks of going through this amazing story. And today, I know many of you know this story, and you've read this story, but today, really the text we're going to be talking about should blow us away. It's unthinkable about what we're going to read today. It's outrageous. It's audacious. Right? It is completely audacious. And as we define this word, right, fearlessness and daring and bold and original and adventurous, right? All that is going to be playing out today as we dive into this text this morning. So we want to start in the same place we started last week. I'm going to show this quote every week by this Hebrew scholar. I just think it really captures what Ruth is about. And that is, the Scroll of Ruth is a book about kindness and audacity, about kindness that propels people to act audaciously for the sake of others. Man, I want us to hear this morning, right? It's a kindness and love. Remember we said that Hebrew word chesed was a tough word to define, right? It's love in the Hebrew, but it's so much more. Well, it's this idea of love and kindness that I have for someone else that would cause me to act in a fearless, daring, bold way for their sake. Okay, it's not just talking about normal kindness or just being nice. It's saying that I'm going to put myself out there on behalf of someone else, and I'm most likely not going to be gaining anything for myself. It's not a give and take. It's a complete give. To love and to show kindness in an audacious way. And we're going to see that today. As we introduced Ruth last week, and we saw that this guy Elimelech, he takes his wife Naomi and his 2 sons to Moab. Because why? Because there's a famine in Bethlehem, and so he wants his family to eat. Seems pretty reasonable, right? And so he moves them all there, and what do we find out in this tragedy of a story? Elimelech dies. The 2 sons marry some Moabite women, but then what? They die. And so we're in this story with 3 women, one that's lost her husband and her 2 sons, and 2 others that have lost their husbands all alone. And we know in this culture, and I know we know this, we said this multiple times, being a woman who's a widow in this culture with no man in your life, not good. Okay, and so they're in a very difficult situation. And where we ended last week is Naomi rises up and she begins to return. This very significant thing of return to Bethlehem. And we know that at that point, Ruth and Orpah are still with her. And that's where we're going to pick up the story today. This tragedy of a story. And as we're hearing this, right, as that audience hearing this story for the first time, and those who knew this story, like, what the heck is happening? How is this going to turn out any good at all? Okay? So here's where we're going to start, verses 8 through 10. But I want to share this first as we begin, because I think it's easy to read and hear about Naomi and say, gosh, maybe Naomi could have responded. But we really have to understand her situation. So to have Orpah and Ruth return to Moab means that Naomi must journey home utterly alone and desolate, having lost everything and everybody. But to have them go with her back to Judah means asking them to renounce all hope of life that she's imploring Yahweh to give them. So Naomi is faced with this dilemma, right? No real choice. I send them back so they can remarry, or they come with me and they leave everything behind and they have no idea whether they're going to be received as Moabite women in Bethlehem. So here's Naomi, right? This is where we're at right now. Naomi in this story, no real choice of what's best for her or them. Okay, and so I want us to see this tension that's existing, and maybe even, we watched a lot of movies, maybe we can see this movie playing out. Just begin to watch that and see this morning as there's tension in this story, as what is Naomi going to do? And what are these 2 Moabite women going to do? So here we go. A couple things to look out for in these first three verses. Chesed, we want to definitely see that. That is called out. The word is actually there in the text this morning. Return, very significant word, right, is returning back to God, returning back to Judah. And then finally, Naomi calling upon Yahweh, right? She's imploring Yahweh to give these women new husbands. And so let's take a look starting in verse 8. But Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Go, return." Okay, return each of you to her mother's house. Again, interesting. Why a lot of scholars think maybe our author was female, or definitely coming from a female perspective, right? Because you would normally expect to read, return to your father's house. But the fact that she says return to your mother's house is suggesting you need to return to get married. Okay, you're returning to be remarried. And may the Lord, Yahweh, it's all in caps, so we know this is the divine name Yahweh, may the Lord deal chesed with you. May the Lord bestow a great amount of love upon you. May the Lord just show up for you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. Naomi's saying, like, look, when my sons died, your husbands died, you could have bolted then, right? You could have left. You had every right to leave and go. But what you did is you stuck around. And so I'm praying now that Yahweh would show you this tremendous love if you've already shown this tremendous love and kindness to me. Okay? And the Lord Yahweh grant you that you may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Praying that they would return to Moab and that Naomi's God would bless these Moabite women with new husbands. She's made a choice, right? She's made this choice that the best thing for these two Moabites is to stay in Moab, to head back to their hometowns, to their mother's house, and seek out new husbands. And then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices, and they wept. And so the text here isn't describing, right? They're wailing. The connection is pretty deep between Naomi and these two women, and so they are wailing. They are connected and crying about what's just occurred. So she kisses them and essentially saying to them, go ahead, you can go. Well, what occurs next? They said to her, no, we will not return. We will return with you to your people. So Naomi's saying, look, you go. I'm praying for new husbands for you. And these two daughters-in-law, whose probably best decision is to head back, say, no, we're going to stay connected to you. We feel a drama build here. Right? I mean, I hope we're sensing what's occurring because, and we're going to see this called out here when we get to the next couple of verses, right? Is they're making a decision to go back to an unknown place where they may not be received. But in this moment, maybe it's because of emotions, maybe it's because they can't imagine leaving Naomi. But what they're saying, if we're really kind of looking at this, is we're willing to go back to this place we don't know of and know whether we're really even going to survive. All right. So now we get to 11 through 14. What are we going to see here? Well, we're going to see Naomi release them from any obligation to her. Okay, she's saying, you have no obligation to me, so you can go. We're going to see a lot of hopelessness in Naomi. We're going to see Orpah leave, and we're going to see Ruth cling. And this word cling is a pretty significant word, right? It's like a covenant clinging. We see this in Deuteronomy, a covenant clinging to God. And the word actually has a sense of adhesive. Right, so what that means is Ruth attaches herself to Naomi like duct tape, right? I mean, she is adhesively attaching herself at the end of this section to Naomi. So let's take a look. Pick it up in 11. So they say no. Naomi says, turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? And now she gets really illogical statements that surely can't be true, but trying to stress her point of what she cannot do for them. She cannot give them another husband, which again, in that culture, these women need, right? They need either their fathers or husbands. And she says, have I yet sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Obviously not. Turn back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. And if I should say I have hope, even if I should have a husband this night and should bear sons, would you therefore wait till they're grown? No, of course not. Would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, for it is exceedingly bitter to me for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. Now, here's one thing about Naomi that we know for sure, right? Naomi believes God's in control of everything, whether it's good things happening to her or bad things happening to her. Okay, and so we might look at this as complaining a little bit, but she's saying, look, God's in control of the situation, and really, for me, it hasn't gone so well. Right? My husband's died, my 2 sons died, I'm left with a couple daughters-in-law. What am I supposed to do with them? Where am I supposed to go? Who's going to take care of me? What are my options? And so she's saying the Lord has dealt with me in an exceedingly bitter way, in a tough way. And it's for your sake. Go back. And then they lifted up their voices, and what did they do? They wept again. We grasping the emotion here. So women that are connected. Now, many of you have had to grieve, right? We've grieved the loss. And here is this woman, Naomi, that's lost the 3 men in her life. She is in the depth of grieving. And I don't know about you, but when I am in the depth of grief or depression, I really don't want anybody around. Right? I want to do it alone. I just want to just live in that moment and say, God, I can't believe this, or what's happening? And so Naomi is in this spot, and these gals are in a pretty similar spot because they've lost their husbands, and so here they are. The only thing they have is each other. And Naomi's saying, go, go, go. So we grasp the emotion that's occurring. Their bond in the grief. They're not understanding of what's next. Who's going to take care of them? What are they going to do? Where's any hope existing for either one of them? So the grief is occurring. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law. Sense of what's happening here in the Hebrew is Orpah leaves. She's kissing her mother-in-law goodbye. And at this moment, our narrator says nothing else about her. He doesn't condemn her in any way. She's not doing anything wrong, is she? She's heading back to her family. Naomi has released her and said, you can go. So Orpah seems to make a pretty logical decision here. But what does Ruth do? She clung. She attached herself like a duct tape to Naomi. Now, as I think about this, right, as I'm watching this movie, can you imagine this movie playing out? And we all would watch this and take this differently, right? And Cindy and I would be on each end of the couch watching this play out, and Naomi crying, the women crying together, and we see Orpah leave and Ruth cling, and I'm like, yeah, logical, Orpah leaves. Of course that makes the most sense. And Cindy be over there crying like, Ruth stayed. And I'm like, yeah, but Orpah left. That makes more sense, doesn't it? Who would stay? But she stays. And she's not done saying what she's about to say. Right? And so what's about to occur to a guy like me is completely illogical. It doesn't make any sense to me, the connection that Ruth is about to proclaim to Naomi. It's outrageous. And even for those of us sitting here that are highly emotional and like, oh, just love the beauty of the story, I want to tell you it doesn't make any sense. And we'll get there. So let's take a look at where we're going to go starting in 15 for the next 3 verses. We're going to see chesed for sure again. Ruth is vowing a lifelong commitment here, okay? She's not saying, hey, let's give it a year or 2 and see how it works, right? No. Other point I want to make here, and this is important. Ruth chooses Yahweh because she first chooses Naomi. I want us to read this, right? Because I was reading some stuff outside of my normal study, and people are so concerned that Ruth gets converted. There's no conversion happening here at this point, okay? Ruth is choosing Naomi, hence she has to choose Naomi's God. But her connection is to Naomi. This is a human-to-human connection. She's not going because Yahweh said to go. She's going because she is clinging to who? Naomi. Okay, we want to make sure we get that. That's the choice. And then she uses these words, I will go, which a reader of that time who would have been reading this story would say, whoa, I know who said that. Abraham said that. Big deal. That's a big deal, right? He's the man. And Rebekah said that. I will go. I will go. I will go. And so our narrator puts these words in the lips of Ruth. And she said, Naomi says this first. Because Naomi's like, you got to go. Orpah's on her way. So she says, look. Essentially, turn around and look. Your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after her. Go with her. Give her one last chance to get out, right? To be on her way, to go find another husband, to not be clinging to Naomi. And then here we go. Now here Ruth speaks. Ruth says this, do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. Essentially, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. You've said it enough times already. I'm coming with you. Okay? Now, these great words that were in the song the choir sang last week. From where you go, I will go. My commitment is to you, Naomi. Wherever you're going to go, I'm with you. I'm clinging to you. And where you lodge, where you sleep, where you stay, where you set up camp, that's where I'm going to lodge. So you're not getting rid of me. I'm following you, right? And then when you sit down to take a nap or to sleep or to spend the night, I'm there too. Okay? I'm not leaving. I'm not going to sneak out while you're sleeping, so to speak. Your people shall be my people. So when we get back there, your people, I'm going to make them mine, and your God will be my God as well. She's making a complete commitment to Naomi. But she's not done. And then where you die, I will die. And there will I be buried. Ruth is demonstrating this idea of hesed. This idea of audacious kindness. Not because it benefits her in any way, but because she is completely focused, apparently, on the needs of Naomi. She is completely focused on this relationship that she has, and she is making a decision to sacrifice probably hope of a husband and family in Moab to go to a place where maybe it's not going to go well for her. Maybe the people in Bethlehem are going to say, oh, hey, no, Naomi's back, but this Moabite, forget about her. Yep, just whatever, take her, use her, whatever you want, become a slave, whatever, right? She's risking it because she's attached herself to this woman. Is this unbelievable? I mean, really, we read and we say, oh, this is so pretty, it's a great story, but this is ridiculous, right? She is saying, I'm going to go with you to this other place. I have zero idea what's going to happen. I'm leaving everybody I possibly know behind because I'm going to be committed to you. Craziness to me. And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go, she said no more. Now again, I think it'd be easy at this point to get down on Naomi because Naomi, our author doesn't say Naomi's like, oh my gosh, thanks Ruth. Unbelievable, I can't believe you're going to go with me. But again, when you're in the depths of despair, depression, grief, and someone says that, right, you're just thinking this is maybe another burden for me. What's going to happen to me when I take a Moabite back? Right? Because that's where you're living. And so Naomi is just like, what else is she going to do? She's told her, 3 times already? Head back. And Ruth says, no, I'm completely committed to you. And so Naomi's like, fine. We'll make the journey back. I want to share this thought, and I'm going to share more from this scholar in a minute at the end. But Phyllis Tribble, a biblical scholar, really became known in the 70s for writing about a female interpretation of the Scriptures. And really, I feel like she's really done a great job of grasping this story. And she says, in the entire epic of Israel, only Abraham himself matched such radical commitment. But he had a call from God and was a man in a man's world with a wife and family for support. I want us to hear this because here's what this hit me in the last week of why this is so ridiculous to me. Is Abram, right? Abram's minding his own business in Haran, and I love that story. One of my favorite stories in the Bible, right? And God shows up, this Yahweh that maybe is one of the gods he's worshiping, we don't know, shows up and says, hey, buddy, gather your stuff and your family and just start wandering, and I'm going to show you where to go. And then I'm going to bless you and all this stuff. But who told him to do it? God, Yahweh, right? He didn't wake up one day and say, I think, I'm just going to take off. Yahweh said, go do this. Who told Ruth? Nobody. Right? So I've been processing this. Like when God says, Tim Evans, I want you to go do this thing. Go move your family there. I want you to go to seminary. I want you to go pastor this church. I want you to go over there. Right? It's like, oh, God said that. I want to be obedient to God, so I'm going to go. Okay. Right? It might be hard. It might be a challenge. I might be fretting about it. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've got to do this. But God said go, so God said do. I'm going to want to follow and be obedient as God does. But I don't wake up in the morning and say I'm going to sacrifice everything for Chuck. Wherever I'm going. Everybody else, poop. Chuck is my guy. I'm going with him wherever he wants, right? I'm attached to him. I don't do that. I don't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to just sacrifice it all for another human being without God being involved one iota. That's the story. You see, I think we say, okay, when God's involved in my life, he tells me, okay, yeah, I want to be there, but that's not happening. That's why this is audacious. She just says, I'm sticking to you, Naomi. I'm forsaking everything else to walk into an unknown place for whatever might happen for you. Church, I can't model that. I am not wired in that way. Now, maybe some of you are. Maybe you are. Some of you are. But this is an illogical story that I could never follow. God asked me to do something, I can handle that. But to just say, because I'm attached to someone so emotionally connected that I'm willing to sacrifice it all, I can't even, right? This doesn't even connect in me. I don't even understand it. Now, maybe you can make that connection, but I can't do it. Because I can't imagine waking up and making that decision without the Lord speaking, without Him telling me. So I want us to get this. This isn't just like, hey, let's go, let's head off to Bethlehem and see what happens, man. No, it's like I'm risking my life for this other human being because I just want to. I feel like I should. I don't know. I have this weird connection to her. I don't know. But she's risking it all to go. But the story's not done. Our narrator keeps building the drama here, right? He or she keeps building this drama. So where do we go in the last little bit? Well, it's chaos and confusion. We're going to see when we get back to Bethlehem. We see that Yahweh is to blame. And again, before we jump on Naomi, don't act like we haven't lived in that boat at times. Right? I'm alone, Naomi says, but again, we want to talk about that. Then reality sets in. And our narrator does an amazing, amazing job where he or she ends this. So let's take a look. Let's pick this up, verse 19. So the two of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. Interesting, our narrator doesn't tell us anything about the story, right? 50-mile journey at least, through rugged terrain. Could be robbed, killed, raped along the way, but we don't hear anything, so we're assuming they made it okay. But an arduous journey to get from there back to Bethlehem. And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred. That essentially means there's chaos and confusion. Naomi's been gone for 10 years. So they see her come in. It says the women see her come in, and they say, is this Naomi? We all know how much we've changed in 10 years, right? We can go look at a picture from 10 years ago, look at it now and be like, whoa, who's that person? Right? And so she's changed, and she's got a stranger with her. Where's Elimelech and the two boys? Is this really her? So there's chaos and confusion by the women of the town as they enter. And so Naomi says, do not call me Naomi, which means it's like lovely. It means lovely. But instead call me Mara, which means bitter. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. Again, she's grieving. I don't know. I mean, I'd be like that, right? If my wife and kids died and I'm left alone, I'm like, oh, hey, what's going on, man? Why me? I'd probably be saying, don't call me Tim, call me, I guess Mara probably wouldn't be good, but something else, right? You'd be like, whoa, really? Yes. I went away full, she says. I went away with a great life. I had a husband and 2 sons. Life was good for me. My husband was thinking ahead. We could get food in Moab, right? I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Yahweh has brought me back, and I have nothing. Now, some of us are going to sit there and say, right, someone's on one end of the couch, you're like, but you got Ruth, but you got Ruth. And she's sitting there in her grief like, I got nothing. What am I going to do with this Moabite, right? It's going to be a burden to me, right? I mean, you guys might even kill her. I don't even know what you're going to do with her. Because we know you don't like the Moabites, right? So what's going to happen to her? And really, how's a Moabite woman going to help me in Bethlehem? So she's seeing herself as alone. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has testified against me and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me? Why call me lovely? Why call me by that name when life is just bitter for me? I'm alone. I've got nobody. I have zero idea what's going to happen tomorrow. Right? I've come back now with my tag along, and I have zero idea what's going to happen. So it's not a good situation, right? Our narrator's doing a great job. So the tension is still real here, right? There's chaos, confusion. No one has stepped up. They're back now in Naomi's hometown with no hope, as far as we know. No hope. But our narrator gives us a little bit. I love the wording here. So Naomi returned. Okay, there's our word. Naomi returned back to her hometown, back to her people. We're not sure how she's going to be received because she doesn't have any men in her life. And Ruth, the who? The Moabite. He wants to point out who she is, right? She's still a Moabite. She is not a Hebrew. She's not, right? She's not jumping after Yahweh. She is a Moabite who's attached herself to Naomi. But then, her daughter-in-law with her. But then, look at the word. It's so intriguing. But I love it. This is where the hope comes in. He doesn't say Ruth the Moabite who left the country of Moab. It says Ruth the Moabite who returned from Moab. She didn't return from Moab. She's not from Bethlehem. But he gives us hope that maybe where she's supposed to be is in Bethlehem. Maybe something good is going to happen here. Because she didn't return. She was from there. She never left Bethlehem, went to Moab. She was from Moab. But our narrator says, no, actually, she's returning from Moab and gives us a little hope that maybe there's something in the story. And they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. All right, food. But we're still left. I mean, I'm picturing the movie scene, right? Here's Naomi and Ruth sitting in the middle of the town square, sitting somewhere in Bethlehem, and people, the women over here gossiping about her, men walking by eyeing them like, hey, maybe take advantage of these women or something, right? So others looking at, hey, maybe we can get some slave work here, right? And so you feel the tension that's existing in this story because we don't know what's about to occur and what's possibly going to happen. We get a little hope from our narrator, returned. What does that mean? But as you see the scene, it's hopeless. These two women have nobody. They don't even know where food is going to come from. No one's rushing out. The narrator hasn't told us anybody's rushing out to care for them. They're just there alone. They made the decision to go back. Ruth said yes, and here they sit. It's an outrageous story, and it seems pretty hopeless still at this point. We're amazed by Ruth, right? I'm blown away by Ruth, but the story as a whole, they're still pretty hopeless. And so I want to finish the quote by Phyllis Tribble, because it really helps me grasp a little bit what's occurring here. Because, as I said, I can't process it logically, right? And I don't have the depth of emotion to understand it, right? Someone making that type of commitment without being asked by God to do it, just doing it. And so Tribble says this, and there's two parts to this. She says, Ruth stands alone. She possesses nothing. No God has called her. No deity has promised her blessing. No human being has come to her aid. She lives and chooses without a support group, and she knows that the fruit of her decision may well be the emptiness of rejection and indeed of death. Consequently, not even Abraham's leap of faith surpasses this decision of Ruth's. I agree. I've never studied Ruth until this time, right? I've read Ruth and like, oh, that's a great story. Until now, I agree. Every other great in the Bible is called up by God, right? Prophets called by God, others called by God. God is instructing and telling people. Here, Yahweh decides the way I really want to teach the Hebrew people what Hesed is really like, and the way you people later on are going to understand what Hesed is really like, I'm going to use a foreign woman to show you what real love is. And she's not doing it because I asked her or told her. She's just doing it because something inside of her is causing her to love another human being in that way. But Tribble continues this, and she says this, and there's more. Not only has Ruth broken with family, country, and faith, but she's also reversed sexual allegiance. A young woman has committed herself to the life of an old woman rather than search for a husband. One female has chosen another female in a world where life depends upon men. There is no more radical decision in all the memories of Israel. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. And as I have studied this and prayed through this and just been like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can't even imagine. I'm living there. No more radical decision in the history of God's people than this Moabite choosing another human. And not choosing another husband, she's choosing an old woman. Old lady, I'm going with you. I'm sticking with you. And I'm going to be with you to the very end. There's nothing that's going to pull me away from you. Church, I can't be that. I can't mimic Ruth. Maybe you can, I can't. So I feel like the principle here, right, as I'm thinking about this, can Tim Evans, without God even saying anything, can I act in a bold, daring, fearless way on behalf of someone else? Can I do that just because someone is in front of me or there's a situation that's occurring and God's not saying anything? He's just over here like not giving me any direction. I'm like, I'm waiting for direction. Can I, just because the love and kindness exists in me, just be audacious in my love for another human and it only benefits them? Can I do that? Really, that's a principle for me is can I show up that way? I can't be Ruth. Oh my gosh. It just doesn't connect to me. But can I show up for a moment? Right? Can I show up for an hour? Can I show up for a day? For the rest of my life? Oh, holy moly, I don't even know what that means. But can I show up in a moment to be there on behalf of someone else who has a need, whatever that might be? Does that exist inside of me? And that's my prayer for us. Right? This isn't about being nice. This isn't about being accepting. This is about being audacious in the way we love and serve other human beings. Because, why? Because they're other human beings. Because they're people just like me. And something inside of me just says, my gosh, take a bold, ridiculous, audacious step and love them and show kindness, whatever that looks like. It's my prayer for myself. It's my prayer for us. So Luke is going to come, and Bill and Ian are going to come, and we're going to play this last song. I don't think we've ever sung it before. And really, don't worry about singing it. Just worry about sitting in the presence of the Lord and hearing Him speak to you about you. Right? And be open to just saying, God, I don't know what this means, or maybe I do know what this means. I don't know, but God, I want to be a lover of human beings like that. Or I want to have, Lord, that level of kindness for others, whatever it might be. But just lay it out there before God. And allow God to just work in you, speak to you, and move in you. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we love you. And thankful that we get to know you. And Lord, I'm thankful for this story. I'm thankful that you have led us to study it and to dive into it. It's crazy to me. This woman, wow. The love and the kindness and the generosity that she is displaying truly is audacious and outrageous. Lord, help me. Help me to love in that same way. Without any concern for the sacrifice, without any concern for what might happen to me, but just to love and show kindness to others in that way. Lord, just continue to move in us, continue to speak to us. Just allow your Spirit to flow freely amongst us. In Jesus' name.